Hello everyone, back at it again in my little gray crawdad. I just launched and we're going to start off by throwing a Z-Man jackhammer. We got a west wind today, it's mostly west anyway, and we had some rainstorms come through last night, so it's post-front conditions. And what I'm doing is I'm working offshore weed flats with that jackhammer. It's a 1/2 ounce jackhammer. I've already been through a few skirts. I wear out the skirts eventually after catching a bunch of bass and pickerel and whatever else is in there. And the trailer is Z-Man razor shads and fire craw. Some other companies call it flamethrower. It's basically just like a bright orange fish-shaped trailer. It's supposed to look a little bit like a panfish. At least that's what I'm going for. The water's a little bit clearer than I was hoping for. It's stained, but it's clear. So eventually I'm gonna swap out for something a little bit more natural. But just to get going, I thought I'd just start throwing that jackhammer because that's what I had tied on. And it doesn't take too long, and I got the first fish coming in the boat. So that's just my first couple casts out here, and that's a good sign. That's not the size I want. He's only about 1 pound, but it's a start. Got to start somewhere. This is a few casts later. I'm just working my way down this northern bank. And I had a fish on for a second, but he pulled off. And I think what I had was a pickerel. And the reason for that is the razor shads was a little bit cut up. And normally bass won't cut up the razor shads. And half my skirt is missing on that jackhammer now. And the strands that are remaining are kind of glued to the trailer. And that's really what I don't want. I want a fuller skirt, that either a single strand or double strand skirt that will, puff up and move while I'm popping the rod and popping that bait through the weeds. I want that skirt to kind of undulate and look like a real fish and give some secondary action to the jackhammer. And I'm looking at that skirt again, and there's really not much to it. So I put the jackhammer down. I'll replace that skirt again later. And I've picked up a weedless Project Z chatterbait. That's one that I've modified. I did a video earlier on how to modify it, so it's actually fishable. But with this, it's a 3/8 ounce. It comes through these emerging lily pads just wonderfully. Better than a jackhammer, much better than a jackhammer. Those big lily pads, they act sort of like wood. And the jackhammer will roll and catch the sides of the lily pad stalks, just like it would in wood. Anyway, when you have a weedless chatterbait, you can fish right through all that stuff. He's not very big, but he's fat, and he's got something in his belly. I couldn't quite tell what it was. It felt a little bit like a bluegill, but the shape wasn't quite right. And it didn't seem firm enough to be a bluegill, but he's definitely eating something, and he's a fat little bass. So I'm just going along fishing the wind-blown side, which is also the eastern side. That's where I like to focus in the spring. The sun's warming up the water on the eastern side of the pond a little bit more than the western side, which can be shaded. So that's where the warmest water should be. Seems like that's where I do the best. So I kind of split the pond in half and only fish what I think should be the warmest side of the pond. Now there could be some fish on the other side, but I won't know it because I'm not fishing over there. But I can cover lakes and ponds a little bit faster if I just focus on what I think is going to be the warmest side of the pond. Allows me to break down water faster, be a little bit more efficient. That cast went right behind, there's a little dock there, it went right behind one of those dock pilings, and as soon as I started cranking, that fish was on it. So that's an important thing when fishing chatterbaits, is you want chatterbaits that start up fast. Otherwise, by the time you get that blade working, you're already past the structure you're trying to fish. And so anything with like a split ring on the nose, those take a few feet to get going. And so I always typically fish with Z-Man chatterbaits because they have the line connection to the blade right on the nose, and they start up fast. And so, yeah, your fishing structure, or you're popping through weeds, or whatever else, you want that blade to start up almost immediately. And some other competitors, to try to get around the Z-Man patent, anything with like a split ring or some kind of other intermediate connection there, it just makes the startup speed a lot slower, and they don't work nearly as well. The other thing is that with a 3/8 ounce Z-Man Project Z weedless chatterbait, is that I can fish a little bit shallower than I can with a 1/2 ounce jackhammer. So I'm getting a little bit closer to the shoreline. I'm not fishing the offshore weed flats as much. I'm fishing pretty much right up against the bank. That's where my casts are landing, and or maybe outside some of those reeds. And it's working, but I'm not really catching the size fish that I want to catch. So I picked up my Swimbait rod. That's a Savage bluegill right there. It swims a little bit better. It's more stable with the treble hook on the belly, but I always fish it with the treble hook on top, because I'm coming through weeds, and if you have the treble hook on the belly, you're going to catch the weeds. So with the treble hook on top, it's much less stable, but it will come through the weeds a lot better. And I fished around with the Swimbait for a while, and I couldn't get any takers. You know, Swimbaits can be either hit or miss. I'm either going to get something big or strike out, and I struck out this time. Okay, next up was a Megabass SV3 spinnerbait. This is probably the nicest spinnerbait I've ever thrown. It's got quality components, casts well, and most importantly, it runs true. It's got a kind of a keel-weighted head on it that keeps it upright. It's got good ball bearing swivels to keep those blades spinning. And even after a bunch of fish, it still ran true. I caught some pickerel on it. I caught some little bass. This guy, he's very small. I don't even know if he'd go a pound. But I'm back to catching fish again, and I'm just trying different baits to see if I can get some larger size. And it didn't really work out on this trip. It's funny. I seem to do better in this pond when the water is a little bit cloudy in the spring. The water right now is very clear. It's stained, but it's clear. And in the shallow water, if there was a lot of big fish swimming around, I'd be able to see them. And that's happened on previous trips here, is that I can see fish in the shallows hunting. And they're hunting schools of panfish, and there's just none of the panfish up shallow yet that I'd expect to see. I'm not really sure why. It's, I don't know, 65 degrees today, and it could be just the post-front conditions turned them off, or the brighter skies, or, you know, it was kind of cold and rainy last night, and so maybe they backed off a little bit. And I tried backing off the bank. I tried a bunch of different stuff, and I just couldn't find the quality fish that I know are in here. And yeah, I tried a bunch of stuff, and I have to figure them out. So it could be just, you know, the wrong day, or they haven't quite moved up yet. I'm not really sure what the problem is, but at least on this day, I caught a bunch of fish. They just weren't the right size fish. But it was a fun trip out here. I enjoyed my time on the water, like I always do, and I'll have to figure them out next time. So thank you all for watching. I'll list all the gear in the video description, and I'll catch you on the next one. See ya!